Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I want to give you 4 alternatives to the Rolex Explorer. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stay in the luxury tier, and I'm just going to loosely define that as watches that retail at or above $1,000. And we want to keep some things aesthetically similar to what's going on with the current production of the Rolex Explorer. Now, I'm actually thinking about just the stainless steel versions. There are 2. There's a 36 millimeter, which trades retail at $7,250. That's the 124-270 reference. And then the 224-270 reference is the 40 millimeter variant, and that's $7,700 according to Rolex's website. Now, there are 3 main principles that we want to stick with when we're going to do alternatives to the Explorer. So the Rolex Explorer follows a sort of Arabic hour markings on cardinal directions. And by that, I kind of mean 3, 6, 9, 12. The Explorer doesn't put one up at the 12, but you can see that the 3, 6, and 9 are where we have Arabic numerals, and then the rest of the markings are just indices. So that's really the format that we're going to go for. It doesn't have to be the exact same numbers, but I kind of want that cardinal positioning. I think if you're really into the Explorer, that's really what you're going to try and find in an alternative. The second thing is water resistance. The Rolex Explorer is 100 meters of water resistance. I don't think we can drop below that if you're looking for an ample substitute. So we're going to stick with that qualification. And then the third aspect that I think is important for us to go ahead and stick with is the sizing. So I've given you a range here. Rolex currently makes a 36 millimeter and a 40 millimeter. So we're going to stick within that range. It can be as low as 36 and it can be as high as 40, but no less and no more. So as noted by the title of the video, I do have 4 alternatives for you. And I want to go ahead and start with the quote unquote baby brother, as some people refer to it, Tudor of Rolex, because Rolex owns Tudor. And that is the Tudor Ranger. Now the Tudor Ranger is a 39 millimeter watch. It's 100 meters of water resistance. Of these 4 versions that I've got, this is probably the most authentic in the sense that I believe this is based on a vintage model of Rolex, or at least if we go back far enough, of a Rolex Explorer. But in a way, it's sort of deriving itself from the Tudor variant of said Rolex. Regardless of the history of the watch chain, you can see that it does look an awful lot like what the Rolex Explorer currently does. We do have an Arabic marking at the 12 o'clock position, along with the 3, 6, and 9 that the current Explorer has. We've got the water resistance that we need. It's a black dial, so that's pretty similar to what's going on with the Rolex Explorer. And the price point here actually is less than half of even the 36 millimeter variant, and that is $3,150. So the other 3, we're not going to stick with the Rolex family. So let's go ahead and move to the second watch, and we'll go German this time. And we're going to look at the Sinn 556A. Now, as noted, this is a made in Germany watch. Sinn is very much known for their tool watches. This is actually the cheapest watch I have on the 4 substitutes. This is $1,590 currently in US dollars. Its size is 38.5 millimeters, so it's a little bit smaller than the larger version of the Explorer. And it offers 200 meters of water resistance, which incidentally is the most water resistance of any of the 4 alternates that I'm going to present today. Otherwise, again, much like the Tudor Ranger, we've got the 3, 6, 9, 12 Arabic numeral markings, so all 4 cardinal positions are represented. Another notable change is the date window. I actually did try and find a non-date Sinn that complied with my dial requirements. I could not in the current production at least. However, that date window is color matched, and I think it's pretty subtle, and I thought it was non-obtrusive enough that it may be a reasonable substitute for someone who's looking for something a little different than an Explorer, or perhaps one of the reasons that you didn't want to look at the Explorer in the first place was the lack of a date. So this one would solve that issue for you. Moving on to the third watch, this is probably a company that a lot of people regularly think of in competition with Rolex, and that would be Omega. And we're going to go ahead and run with a version that I've seen a lot of people list as an alternative to the Rolex Explorer over the years, and that is the Railmaster. Now, looking at the Railmaster, the first thing that probably stands out is the dial color is not black. This is actually going to be the most extreme difference in terms of dial coloration versus the current Rolex Explorer that I'm going to present to you today. However, it is following a lot of the same aesthetics otherwise. Again, we've got 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock Arabic markings here. We've got our loomed indices. This is a 40 millimeter watch, so it's right there with the 224-270 reference of the Rolex Explorer. It's 150 meters of water resistance, so that's a little bit more resistant than the Rolex Explorer. And this has an MSRP of $5,200, so it comes in roughly $2,000 to $2,500 less than the Rolex Explorer does. The final watch I want to go ahead and give you guys today is a company I did not normally think of until I was doing more research on alternatives that I thought might work, and that's Bell & Ross. Now, when I hear the name Bell & Ross, I always think of square watches at first, because I think that's what tends to get the most press. But they do actually make a number of round watches, and in fact, they have one that looks an awful lot like a Rolex Explorer. In this case, we're going to be talking about the BR-VI-92. And this is a 38.5 millimeter watch, so that's the same diameter as the Sinn we talked about earlier. It's 100 meters of water resistance, so that matches the Rolex Explorer, and it comes in at $2,400, so it's about $1,000 more than the Sinn, but it's significantly less money than the Omega we just discussed. Yet again, we have a 36912 reflected on the dial, which is very similar to the Rolex Explorer, other than the existence of the 12. We do have a 430 date window, which is much like the Sinn. So once more, this is a watch that I think you look at if you're willing to accept a date, especially since you're going to come in at a much lower price point than the non-date watches that I've shown today. The other major difference that I think I should note is I could not find this watch in a configuration with a bracelet. Now, the Rolex Explorer comes on a steel bracelet. All the other alternatives I've shown you come on bracelets, and this is the one exception. So if you're willing to take it on a strap, that's something to factor in, but it does not by default have a configuration that comes on a steel bracelet. So anyway, those are 4 alternatives to the Rolex Explorer that I think meet the criteria that I set. They give you a luxury alternative, be it that you find something about Rolex that you just don't like, something specific about the Explorer you don't like, but you're almost there, and maybe one of these other watches gets you across that line. Or these do all happen to be, as a coincidence, cheaper than the Rolex Explorer even at retail. I wasn't striving with that as a goal in mind, but it might be a factor for some of you that are looking for something more higher end, but not Rolex higher end. But anyway, those are my suggestions as 4 alternatives to the Rolex Explorer. What do you guys think? What do you have in mind in terms of a good Rolex Explorer-esque field watch that you think I should have discussed? Go ahead and comment that below. I'd appreciate reading those. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. It helps my channel out. And if you want to be notified when I have a new video, just click subscribe. Other than that, I hope you all have a really good week. Take care.